The Presidency and the Two-Term Limit. The 22nd Amendment and the Legacy of Franklin D. Roosevelt. The role of the President of the United States is one of the most powerful positions in the world, responsible for shaping domestic policy, leading international affairs, and upholding the Constitution. However, the length of time a president may serve has not always been strictly defined. While the Founding Fathers, notably George Washington, set a precedent of serving only 2 terms, it was not until after the presidency of Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR, that this limit was codified into law through the 22nd Amendment. This essay explores the historical background of presidential term limits, FDR's unprecedented 4-term presidency, and the subsequent ratification of the 22nd Amendment in response to his extended tenure. The 22nd Amendment. What is it and why was it created? The 22nd Amendment to the United States Constitution states, "No person shall be elected to the office of the President more than twice, and no person who has held the office of President or acted as President for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected President shall be elected to the office of the President more than once." Ratified on February 27, 1951, the amendment formally limited presidents to serving 2 terms or a maximum of 10 years if they assumed the presidency from a predecessor who left office early. This amendment was passed primarily in response to Franklin D. Roosevelt's unprecedented 4-term presidency, which alarmed many in Congress and the American public. Historical context: the 2-term tradition. Before FDR, most U.S. presidents adhered to the 2-term tradition established by George Washington. Despite widespread support, Washington voluntarily stepped down after serving 2 terms, 1789, 1797, setting a powerful example for future leaders. Thomas Jefferson, reinforcing this practice, wrote in 1807, "If some termination to the services of the Chief Magistrate be not fixed by the Constitution, or supplied in practice, his office nominally for years will in fact become for life." For over 140 years, this tradition remained intact, with presidents like Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln, and Woodrow Wilson not seeking 3rd terms either out of respect for precedent or due to political circumstances. However, Roosevelt's presidency changed this dramatically. Franklin D. Roosevelt. The 4-term president. Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected to 4 consecutive terms, serving from March 4, 1933 to April 12, 1945, when he died in office. He remains the only U.S. president to serve more than 2 terms. Extraordinary national and global crises drove Roosevelt's continued re-election. 1. The Great Depression, 1929-1939. When Roosevelt took office in 1933, the United States was in the depths of the Great Depression, with unemployment exceeding 25% and widespread economic collapse. His New Deal programs, including the creation of the Social Security Act, 1935, and the Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC, aimed to provide relief, recovery, and reform. His leadership during these tough economic times made him immensely popular, leading to his landslide re-election in 1936 with 60.8% of the popular vote and 523 out of 531 electoral votes, one of the most significant victories in U.S. history. 2. World War II, 1939-1945. As World War II escalated, Roosevelt sought a 3rd term in 1940, arguing that changing leadership during a global conflict would be dangerous. The American public largely agreed, and he won re-election, becoming the first president to break the 2-term tradition. When the U.S. officially entered the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941, Roosevelt's leadership remained crucial. His military strategies, alliance building, and efforts like the Lend-Lease Act, 1941, which supplied Britain and the USSR with wartime materials, strengthened his position. In 1944, despite declining health, he ran for and won a 4th term, but died just months later on April 12, 1945. Why did Congress pass the 22nd Amendment? Roosevelt's long tenure raised concerns about executive power and political dominance. Many feared that allowing an individual to serve indefinitely could lead to dictatorship-like rule, undermining democratic principles. Senator Robert A. Taft, R. Ohio, a leading Republican, remarked, "Unlimited tenure in the highest office in the land can be dangerous. It is necessary to prevent the establishment of a political monarchy. Following Roosevelt's death, Congress swiftly moved to prevent another president from serving indefinitely. The Republican-controlled Congress proposed the 22nd Amendment in 1947, which was ratified by 1951. Since then, all U.S. presidents have been bound by the two-term limit. Statistics and political impact. Franklin D. Roosevelt won 4 consecutive elections, 1932, 1936, 1940, and 1944. No other president has served more than 2 elected terms. The 22nd Amendment was passed by Congress on March 21, 1947, and ratified on February 27, 1951. The only president who could have potentially won a third-term post-amendment was Dwight D. Eisenhower, who left office in 1961 with a 65% approval rating, but was ineligible. Conclusion. Franklin D. Roosevelt's unprecedented 4-term presidency led to the formalization of presidential term limits through the 22nd Amendment. While his leadership was instrumental in navigating the U.S. through economic turmoil and global war, his prolonged tenure raised concerns about excessive executive power. By establishing a 2-term limit, the amendment reinforced the foundational principle of a republic, that leadership should rotate to prevent tyranny. Roosevelt's presidency reshaped the American political landscape, leaving a lasting impact on the executive branch and the laws governing it.